attack took place. I want to bring in David Danon now. He's the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, joining me now from New York. We've spoken many times in the past, Ambassador Danon, about the scourge of anti-Semitism, not in the abstract, of course, but this is something that's really driven it home, quite literally, for a lot of people here in Pittsburgh. Your reaction to what happened here in the Squirrel Hill neighborhood in Pittsburgh yesterday?
This was a horrible attack, David, not only against the Jewish community, but against the American values. When a murderer enters a synagogue on a Shabbat service and kill innocent people, it's right against the core of the American values of freedom of religion. And I think now it's time not only for condemning the attack, but for action. It's time for action. We need to hear clear condemnations from everyone. We need to think about the security, what we are doing in the synagogues. Unfortunately, in Europe today, when you go into a synagogue, you face a different reality than the US. Maybe it's about time to do something similar here in the synagogues in the US. And third, it is about time to think about monitoring the social media of potential terrorists. Unfortunately, we have experience in Israel, and we do monitor social media of potential terrorists, and we are able to prevent many incidents like we saw yesterday. I think it is a time for action for the Jewish communities and for the authorities.
We saw yesterday the Prime Minister decrying what happened here. I wonder what your conversations have been like with the government about the attack that took place here yesterday.
Well, as I mentioned, we have that experience with attacks in Europe, in France, and when we spoke with authorities back then, we told them it is your responsibility to secure the Jewish communities. We in Israel, we are here to support the Jewish community, to help them, but the responsibility is of the government, and I'm sure that the authorities will do whatever is necessary to change the reality today that someone can enter a synagogue. We saw that in 2015 in Charleston, South Carolina, when another crazy individual entered the church. We don't want to wait for the next incident. We need to take actions to prevent them.
You talk about support, and I wonder how you define it after what happened here yesterday. What does that mean? What needs to happen going forward here?
Well, in terms of the Jewish community, we do speak with them, we help them to cope with the situation. But I think in terms of security, we need to think about what we are doing in synagogues and churches and mosques in the United States. It is unfortunate. No one wants to go to pray and to pass by a security guard. But look what happened at the airport in the last 20 years. 20 years ago, you just boarded a flight without going through security. Unfortunately, today, I think we cannot leave it intact. We cannot allow individuals to enter synagogues and to massacre Jews, Christians, and Muslims today.
And as I've heard from members of the community here, Ambassador Danon, certainly a conversation that's already beginning here in Pittsburgh. Ambassador David Danon, he is the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, joining me today from New York. Much more about the politics of what happened here yesterday, the comments made by the President of the United States at an event in Indianapolis and a rally later in Southern Illinois, coming up right here